Scenes of devastation in Cornwall following a night of torrential rain.
In Mevagissey, people were rescued by lifeboats from their homes.
Military helicopters were scrambled to deal with those who were left stranded by the downpours in the early hours.
On the ground in St Blaise, the damage to homes was not only devastating, it was heartbreaking. In Lostwithiel, crowds of onlookers watched anxiously as the bridge threatened to buckle under the weight of the raging, swollen river.
My name's Reuben Pike. I'm a retired building contractor. I did some work on a property next door about 8 years ago, and I liked it so much, and I thought, well, should I ever move again, I'd like to live in Lostwithiel. The phone rang because we got a flood alert scheme to let me know that we were going to be evacuated. So I went outside, and the river was starting to flood, and we'd had a lot of rain that night beforehand. So I met other neighbours, and we were looking for sandbags, etc. And I learnt that the flood high tide would be about 10:30. So this was about 9:15 now, and I wasn't really too worried. And I was offered to abandon my cottage, and I said, well, look, if you don't mind, I'll stick it out. So I went upstairs and had to lay down, hopefully that it would all go away. You know, 10:30, the water started to recede. When I woke up, it was about noon. I think the phone woke me, the mobile. And came downstairs, and the water was up to my knees.
It floods roughly every 20 years and has done since the town was created back in the 1100s. Even though we're 6 miles inland, the high tides do have quite a severe effect in the centre of the town, and we're on the River Foy, so heavy rainfall on Bodmin Moor will cause elevated river levels, and because of the topography of Lostwithiel set in a deep valley, if we get localised heavy rainfall, all that will have an impact on the river basin. In December 2012, there was about 20 properties were severely flooded, and the November 2010 episode, we had about 45 or 50 properties, but there were different houses.
I couldn't get the doors open of the house. The flood doors weren't working. So I went out through the conservatory window, and I did give a little call, and the fire brigade guys said, we're waiting for you. I know one guy said, you better jump now. I said, well, look, I don't bounce at my age. He said, I never miss. And I got in an inflatable, and that was it. I was away.
My doorbell rang at about 2:10 in the morning, and it was one of the residents in Queen Street saying Queen Street was filling up with water. So we managed with a few people to clear a couple of the drain gullies, which were completely choked up. Incredibly, you turn around and the water's gone. Providing you can keep the heavy rainwater in the drainage system, you're really on a winner.
Some of the key things a community needs to think about when it's putting together a flood plan is firstly understanding its flood risk and acknowledging that. Working with ourselves and working with our professional partners to help them to understand why flooding would affect that community. Then secondly, it's starting to understand what actions that community can do to help to protect itself. Those can be really simple steps, such as helping to warn and inform vulnerable people, or from helping local businesses to put up temporary defences when flooding is coming. And then the other key thing is for them to know what the trigger is through our flood warning service and to put that plan into place.
The road to creating that plan was quite long and quite challenging. It was the idea of having sectors within the town that could be manned or controlled by a warden to give advance notice to the people living in the risk areas, some idea of what to prepare for.
A flood warden is there to assist the community in a flood situation. It could be from anything, from just being there as a support to let them know what's going on, to working with the emergency services so that they know which residents are vulnerable, or it could be just going around delivering sandbags to those places that are flooded. And we've made it our job to go and find information about who would need help, who wouldn't need help, so that we can then communicate that back and it's better for the town.
So many people came to observe what was going on, and I couldn't believe how they were walking by the side of the river with their families, the children and dogs, and they just had no regard to the severity of the situation. If anyone had fallen in, they couldn't have been saved.
One of my big roles was that the path behind on the river, as the river was so high, is very dangerous, and making sure that the public knew not to run up and down there. On alert, we come down and we have specific areas that we check. Someone will check the bridge, I check the pathway. And then if we get a warning, that's when we all spring into action. We check our areas, we all congregate in the community centre, make sure everybody is covered. If there is a flood warden missing, we go and cover their area, and then we all take on specific roles.
As the Environment Agency, we've got quite a number of things we can do to help a community get their flood plan up and running. We can give them the tools and the guidance to actually how to create their flood plan. We can send our officers down in to help them with the initial meetings, and we can also put them in touch with the other communities that have created flood plans in the surrounding area to help them work together.
They all took a very different approach to it. So at the beginning, you got no plan. At the end, you have a flood management plan. But the route taken in each case was very, very different. And I found that quite surprising. But the more I've looked at other community flood management plans, is that, again, they're all totally different. So you can't just find a suitable plan, cherry pick the good points, slap your name on the top, and Bob's your uncle. It doesn't work like that. It has to come from within the community. And that's what's made certainly Loss Withiel's and Mevagisse's and St Blazie's plans successful. You don't have the power of King Canute and to stop any flooding. The aim is to minimise its impact and to provide advance warning to people and properties at risk so they can be resilient to that.
Our communities down in Devon and Cornwall that were affected in 2012 who had community flood plans have all come back to us and said that having a plan has made a real difference to their community. They felt prepared, they were more resilient to deal with the flooding that happened to them, and they were able to bounce back, to get back on their feet more quickly because the plan was there to help them.
It happened on the 23rd of December and I moved back in on the 2nd of Feb. It took 2 weeks to dry it and 4 weeks to do the work, in the middle of Christmas as well.
We had one of the hairdressers, Dean, his premises got flooded. But within 24 hours, open for business. And that's really important. People see that you get hit really hard, but you can bounce back.